KJ Henry. Good morning, everyone. My name is KJ Henry. I am the Assistant Director of the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. I am an African-American woman with natural curly hair. I am wearing a gold dress and brown framed glasses. The next session will be Foundations of Person-Centered Practices. The presenters will be Heather Daly and Dr. Ishya Dotson of Therap. You can read the description for this section and their bios on pages 2 and 3 of the conference booklet, which is linked in the chat. And whenever you guys are ready, we're ready.
Good morning and welcome to everyone to the GODA conference. We are super excited to be here. Excited to share in this conference presentation with you. Awesome. We're going to talk about a number of things. We're going to talk about the core values of our person-centered approach to providing services and hope to share some great insights with you as we go along the way. We want to just provide a disclaimer slide, just that the information we're sharing with you is for general purposes only. And our next slide that just talks about our retention of rights, which is protecting our intellectual property. Awesome. Just a little bit about us as a presenter. Let me introduce myself. Again, thank you so much, KJ. My name is Dr. Ishya Dotson, also known by my nickname Shay, because most people see my name and they can't say it right? And so we just go by my nickname Shay. I absolutely love what I do in the field. I have over 20 years of experience. I've been with Therap Services it'll be 9 years in November. I am passionate about all things person-centered, and as such, am a certified person-centered thinking trainer, as well as a coach for Charting the LifeCourse Ambassador Series. I do a number of different projects in Therap, one of which is that I am the Assistant Director of Person-Centered Practices, but also leading the charge and working with provider agencies and state systems on how to infuse person-centered principles into your service delivery model so it becomes sustainable person-centered practices. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Hey folks, I am Heather Daly. I'm also going to be presenting with you guys today. I've been with Therap for a couple of years, since 2021, but prior to that, I had over 20 years of experiences in human services, particularly in the IDD field. I've done everything from direct support to support coordination to supervising support coordination at one point in 25 separate counties in the state of Georgia. I've also been an executive director of a day program with a couple of residential houses. We did everything from in-home day services to community-based services to employment services and just about everything in between. Did that for several years before coming on board with Therap. I am also credentialed for person-centered thinking. I am a person-centered thinking trainer, as well as a Charting the LifeCourse coach and ambassador. Shay and I are going to share a little bit with you guys a little deeper about kind of what that means and what those credentials are all about. And then when I'm not doing my job as your representative for Therap in the state of Louisiana, I am actively engaged in person-centered practices, both nationally and in my hometown in the state of Georgia. I am the current treasurer and past chair of the Georgia Learning Community, and I'm co-chair of the Georgia Department of Developmental Disabilities Advisory Council. And I have the unique opportunity of sitting on that council as a parent of a teenager with autism. I guess I should say adult teenager now, as he is 18 years old, and we are now navigating the adult world, being out of the school system and all. But it is a real pleasure. I also like to tell people that my role in human services became before my role as a mother. So that was the universe setting things up for me in a way that would make life transitions a little bit smoother, because I had the education before I had the child. I also have another child with ADHD, but he's not the reason that I sit on the council for the Georgia Department of Developmental Disabilities. So we're excited to share a whole lot with you guys today. I'm going to pass it back over to Shay, and she's going to get us started.
Absolutely. So again, we are so excited to be here today and to share our heart and our passion for what we do. And so we're going to talk about just some foundations to what person-centered practices are, what it's about, why does it matter? And the first thing that we like to talk about, which is a great tie into both of us thinking about why we do what we do. I'm not sure how many would say that they're familiar with Simon Sinek and the awesome TED Talk that he did many years ago called the Golden Why, or the Golden Circle. If you're familiar with that, I would love for you to put that in chat to just let us know that you've heard that TED Talk before. Well, we draw inspiration from that TED Talk where Simon Sinek was speaking to why are there some organizations, some businesses that are more successful than others? And in his analysis of the business market, he said it's because there are some organizations that pay attention to and are driven by their why more than anything else. And so when we think about the why is related to what is our passion? What is our drive? What problem are we trying to solve? How do we want to help the world change? Where the how is related to what is our game plan, our strategy for going about bringing to pass that why? What are we thinking of? What are our policies, our procedures, and the way that we will go about it? And the what relates to the actual activities of what we will do in order to get to the why. So as we think about our why, we could think about that in terms of our mission. We can think about that in terms of our vision of what we want to happen. The how, again, is those strategies that we plan towards that. And the what are the activities that you do in your service delivery that help people lead the lives that they desire. So what is at the heart of the why? What is the why of being person-centered? The why of being person-centered is really about having a heart that values people. Heather, if you'll move us forward, it's about valuing people. It's about really being passionate to understand people for who they are, regardless of the disability that they live with, and really helping to undergird efforts that help people identify the life that they desire, identify those people who are in their circle of supports, and creating that shared vision of how they want to live their life so that everybody is aware of the strategy of the how, and they know what to do, what their role is in the what. It's really about helping people to go from just being present to actually contributing the gifts that they bring to this world, because all of us have a gift that we bring to this world. And so as we begin to think about the golden circle in those various areas, and we begin to think about getting to the why, it requires us to shift in the way that we think, to shift in the way that we think about people, to shift in the way that we think about our service delivery. And so as we do that, we like to tie together these two pieces. There's the three circles of the why, and now we want to connect them with another person-centered tool that helps us to think about how that connects to our core responsibilities. And so as we think about the connection of the golden why and a person-centered tool that we use called the donut, notice that both have those three areas. And so the why, we define that as it's our mission, our vision, right? As we think about the donut, we think about that the middle of that represents our core responsibilities, those things that we absolutely have to get done to say that we are doing our job and doing it with excellence. As we think about the how, it connects to how we use our judgment and creativity. Again, what is our strategy for getting the things that we've identified in our mission and our vision actually done? And the what relates to some things that may or may not fall into our paid responsibilities, in that we have certain activities that we may want to do, but it may require that we get the permission from those in our leadership in order to make sure that we're getting it done. And so we like to think about the golden why and the donut sort of flattened out and what that means to us. As we flatten that out, we think about we have to do our jobs. Again, that's our core responsibility. And so part of doing our job is knowing our mission, knowing what responsibilities that we have, and thinking about how person-centered principles of honoring choice, of honoring desires and hopes and dreams, of honoring that autonomy and supported decision-making, how will those things be included, right? So our why is that we want to promote those person-centered principles. But as we think about how the judgment and creativity, how do we meet those things in our mission? How do we help people to develop a circle of support that's going to empower them and help them to lead the life that they desire? And then what are the things that we're trying to accomplish? Because the end game is we want people to live the life that they desire. And so we want to provide the supports that are necessary to help people accomplish that without necessarily getting in the way, if you will, where we're supporting people to make the decisions and do the activities necessary, but we're not responsible for running lives, right? We're supporting them, we're giving them what is necessary so that they can move forward. And so as we continue in this conversation, we're going to talk about the different components of how we get from the why and what we do in our how and how we get to the what. We're going to now start talking about the importance of building respect and trust in our circles of support. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Heather.
Hey, thank you very much. So when we talk about person-centered practices, one of the most important things, one of the foundational elements is that you got to be able to have conversations and communications with your circle of support. And that circle of support should be largely defined by the person who is supported, so that they can have that circle of people that they know best and that they trust, and there's mutual respect. We want to make sure that when we talk about person-centered practices, that the understanding is that the person that we're planning around has the ultimate opportunity to create that circle, and that they have the ultimate say in what is and is not a part of what's being planned around them. As part of that process, you really do need to have the two key elements of trust and respect, right? You have to be able to trust that circle of support, trust that team of people, that you can rely on them, that you know that they're going to be operating in a place of truth, that you know that they're going to be operating in your best interest, that they're going to be listening to your desires and hopes and dreams. And there has to be mutual respect where everybody in the group is willing to listen to each other, that there's a soft place to land, a comfortable place to have conversations where, you know, even if there's disagreement, that there is going to be that that synergy and that opportunity to be heard. And then also for that person supported, ultimately that, you know, the rubber meets the road with them. Yes, there are going to be times when there are disagreements, that we have to balance choice with responsibility. But at the end of the day, that person is in control of their own lives, and that circle of support is really there to help that person within that circle and within their whole thing. So again, to recap, who belongs in that person's circle of support? Obviously, at the center of that is the person supported. And then the very next layer of that is the people that person wants in their circle. So who are the people that are important to them, that they trust, that they know are going to help make their lives as good as they can be, the people that, you know, make their hearts sing, that make them happy, that really are their champions. And then, you know, those are the people that we like to say light up, or, you know, bubble over when they see somebody or when they're around that person that's being supported. You want to make sure that those folks are there. Then undoubtedly there has to be some professionals in that circle of support. All of us have been supported at some point in time for something. Maybe you've had a health issue and you needed doctors in your lives, or maybe you were I don't know, looking to buy a home, and you had to have those mortgage brokers and real estate agents, right? So we always have professionals in our circle of support helping to guide us when we need that level. But ultimately, we have to be able to, again, trust those folks in our circle. I don't know if you've ever had somebody inside of your own personal circles where you didn't feel like you could trust them. It makes for a very uncomfortable supporting situation. And that needs to change. That person needs to move further outside of the circle, and we're going to move other people in that you really do feel comfortable with and that you feel like they have your best interest at heart. It's no different when we're supporting folks in human services. We need to make sure that that circle of support at the very core is based in trust and respect. We can't be successful without it. So we want to make sure that that's definitely there. So as I move into the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of power with, not power over. A lot of times when we are working in human services, when we're working with these circles of support, we tend to see situations where people who are what we like to call, you know, the process experts, or the experts on the system, or the experts on the diagnoses and all of that sometimes get in a situation where they feel like they're in a position where they can tell people what they should and should not be doing. But we don't want that. We want everybody to have that equal playing field, and we want the person supported to have that veto power in their own lives. They're the ones who get to set up that circle of support. They're the ones that we need to really be listening to, learning from, and supporting, and then sort of repeating that process over and over again. Listening to, learning from, supporting, repeat. It's the job of the circle of support to really understand what drives that person in the middle of the circle to live their best life, and to be able to have the things that they want and need, and to help empower that person to make those decisions to have that best life. There is ultimately going to be some time where we have to do some negotiating, right? Because somebody's going to want something, but maybe a family member or somebody else is going to have a different point of view. And so we need to be able to lay all those different opinions out and look at the source of those opinions and figure out where can we find that common ground that we can build upon. A lot of times when we're dealing with circles of support, some of the things that are going to cause issues or differences in opinions are going to be things like fear of the unknown, past lived experiences, learned behaviors, family histories, organizational cultures, and community influences. And so we have to kind of break through some of those different things so that we can make sure that we're hearing the voice of the person that we support. Now, I know sometimes when we talk about hearing the voice of the person we support, you might be thinking, well, what if the person uses non-traditional ways to do their primary communications? That's okay. There's lots of ways that we can still hear that person's voice. We can hear that voice through body language, through facial expressions, through talking to the people that know and love them the most, the people that they trust to be their voices. So there's lots of ways to hear a person, even if they're communicating in a non-traditional way. We also want to make sure that the perspectives and opinions, no matter how varied or different they might be, they're all validated and recognized. These are people that we've already established trust and respect with. So we have to make sure that all those opinions are validated and recognized. But again, ultimately, that person at the center of that circle has that veto power, that ability to drive their own lives. So as we move ahead a little bit, another part of what is important when we're planning with folks and we're talking about that circle of support is the idea is that there should be equity in person-centered planning. So when we're focused on person-centered thinking, we always want to make sure that we're creating equity among the team members with the decisions, again, driven by that person supported, while everybody has that opportunity to share and be heard. I mentioned before that sometimes there's some negotiation that happens, but there's also that central theme of why. I mentioned power with, not power over. There's also the concept of nothing about me without me. That concept being that we don't make decisions about people or for people. We make decisions with people supported, right? So we don't make decisions about who's their doctor going to be, or where are they going to go in the community, or what are they going to do for fun, or where are they going to live on their behalf. We make those decisions with the person. Again, with that supported person having having the ultimate decision-making power. We also want to make sure that when we're talking about equity, that we want to make sure that people have the ability to, the best of their ability, we want to understand that their definition for a full and healthy life. We want to make sure that they are at the head of that table and they are fully participating and engaging. In contrast, equality is going to aim to assure that everybody gets the same thing in equal measure, but that's not what we're really looking for. We're looking for equity, the opportunity to have what it is that the person supported wants in their lives, unique to their own situation. Shay, is there anything you want to add on equity and inequality?
You must have felt me chomping at the bit. And let me just back up. I forgot to give a visual description of myself. I am an African-American woman with multicolored braids in my hair. I'm wearing a black and white striped shirt with some pretty wooden jewelry on this morning. So forgive me for having done that. But when I think about equity, it's so important in person-centered practices because equity is really about being able to assess and understand where is my experience different and where might I need more support. If you're looking at the visual on the screen, you can see that there are 3 different people and they are all of varying statures in height. And so what one person might be able to experience and to see is not the same as another person because it may take a little bit more support. And so in our person-centered practices, as we're going through that discovery process to get to what's important to and important for that person, it gives us opportunities to really develop meaningful supports for people so that they can have the same kind of experiences to the same degree as others. As Heather said, we all have equality under the law, right? Every person living with a disability has equality, an opportunity to have the same experiences because of what the American Disabilities Act has done. However, equity in that is going to require that we identify exactly what supports people need, exactly what they need in their life to really enjoy the experiences, to really find meaning and value in what they're experiencing to the same degree as others do, who maybe don't require the same level of support. So we think about that in things terms of Braille or having guided supports or having people who can help with interpretation as we have interpreters today. We think about that in terms of just various experiences that might require adaptive equipment, that might require we adapt the way that we're explaining things or even the way that we're participating in activities. That is what creates for all of us to have equity in our experiences, that we're able to identify certain resources that are necessary that certain groups might not have. And so thank you so much for allowing me to share that, Heather.
Absolutely. And sorry for the delay on getting my video back up on screen. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had Shay fully spotlighted there for her to communicate with us. I too did not give a description of myself. I am a blondish white woman with glasses and my hair is about shoulder length or a little longer and I'm wearing a teal shirt. And so thank you for letting me give that visual description as well. As we move on, we're going to talk a little bit about the freedom to choose. All people have the right to make their own decisions and to make choices in their own lives. I can remember when I first started working in this field and I worked in a group home and every morning there was oatmeal on the kitchen counter, you know, the kind that you add water or milk to. And there might have been brown sugar, there might have been, you know, I don't know, apples and peaches and cream or whatever, a variety of those little oatmeal packets on the counter. And I remember the person who ran that group home trying to convince us all that that was choice because there was more than one type of, you know, oatmeal packet on the counter. And so people were able to choose. And I remember working with a particular individual who had it in their support plan that they didn't like to eat breakfast. It wasn't something they were interested in the mornings. In fact, that person very much would have liked to have eaten breakfast, but as you guys can imagine, day after day, morning after morning, getting to choose between one or another packet of oatmeal was no longer appealing to that person. And that, to me, is always a reminder of that's not real choice. When we're talking about choice, we're talking about the freedom and ability to make decisions throughout the day, throughout your life, about the direction that you want your life to go in. And being able to be at the forefront of that decision-making process. This is where person-centered practices can really help get us there. This is where, again, we've got that framework of mutual trust and respect, and we're able to really dig in with that person about not the oatmeal for breakfast. I mean, let's get past that. We'd all like to have an opportunity to eat eggs in once in a while, or pancakes, or, you know, whatever that might be. But even the bigger decisions of life, where do I want to live? Do I want to have a relationship with someone? Who are my friends? How do I practice my spirituality? What do I do for fun? Where do I want to work? All of those kind of things. Which family members do I want to spend time with? Which ones maybe do I not? And that's where we're going to have to start really having those conversations to help people get there and make sure that they are fully participating in their own lives and driving the direction that life goes in. Another concept that I really like to dig into when we talk about person-centered practices is the idea of dignity of risk versus duty of care. A couple of slides ago, we talked about some of the things that can get in the way of supporting people, some of those contentious points, right? Those learned experiences, those cultural differences, those fear of the unknown kind of things. Throw in a little bit of, you know, the idea that you have a job to do in human services, and part of that is to keep people safe and protect them from harm and some of those things. And it becomes challenging to balance dignity of risk versus duty of care. Sometimes when we talk about this concept, I'll have a hot air balloon picture up on the screen to kind of give that idea that, you know, it's a silly example, but sometimes people may want to go up in that hot air balloon. More recently, my friend Shay and I were in St. Louis last week. And if you've ever been to St. Louis, you know there's this 600-foot arch that goes up into the sky. And we all had the opportunity to go visit that arch. And it was really interesting to see which ones of us wanted to get on this kind of scary, very small trolley that takes you up to the top, and then you can view down to the city of St. Louis and to the Mississippi River and see this beautiful view. But in equal measure, there was a number of us that were quite happy to view the arch from the ground and not take that small rickety trolley up to the top that's been there since the 40s or 50s. I don't remember, I apologize. But there's an opportunity there for us to make a decision. Do we want to take that risk, or is that not something we want to do? And that's really what we're talking about when we talk about dignity of risk for people that we support. And I think where we get confused is when we talk about duty of care, which is a legal term that clearly means duty of care is the responsibility of organizations and their staff to ensure no harm to the people they support. However, this does not mean that the organization must protect the person from themselves. And what that means is it's our job to provide an opportunity for informed decision making, right? It's our job as human services entities to make sure that people have an opportunity to understand the parameters of the risk that they're taking. So for me, when I decided to get up inside of that little capsule going up to the top of the St. Louis Arch, I understood how many people had gone up in the arch before me. I understood how long this structure has been in place and what this structure is made of. And I felt like the risk was worth the reward. I felt like it was more than okay for me to jump in that trolley and take the 5-minute ride in this tiny little capsule with people I didn't know to the top of the arch so that I could see the Cardinal Stadium from the sky, so that I could see the Mississippi River from the sky. And Shay, I'm going to ask you to unmute for a second, because I think I'd like for you to assess what you decided to do in that same opportunity.
This is such a great, real example. And so as much as I was excited about going to take a picture of the arch and seeing where it was, in my assessment, I'm happy to cheer people from the ground, but I absolutely was not getting in that small little capsule to go up to the top. And so the funny thing is, even though the structure has been there for many years and many people have come up and gone down, for whatever reason, in my mind, I was just like, I might be that one that doesn't make it. I might get stuck in the sky. And so I wanted to have the experience, but I wanted to have it in a way that I felt safe and I felt comfortable. So we were able to go as a group and each had their own experiences, but then come back together in a part that we all enjoyed, which was coming to look at the historical information in the museum underneath. So it's a great example of equity in experience, that we all don't necessarily have to take in this environment or this event the same way, but we still can have a very memorable experience in the way that we assess it that makes us feel, excited, happy, and safe. Thank you, Heather.
So I wanted to bring Shay in because like I said, she happened to be with me, and it's a simple example that you can apply to all different aspects of life. I've had conversations with moms who didn't want their children working in a fast food restaurant because they were worried about the fry cooker, or maybe, you hear the thing, well, so-and-so can't stay home alone because they'll open the door to anyone. But this is the kind of thing that we talk about. What is the dignity of risk and where is our duty of care? And how can we strike that balance to make sure that a person is safe and well? Today we have things like Ring doorbells so that we can monitor front doors and make sure that people are staying safe. We can do work assessments and make sure that the person is capable of meeting the criteria to even be near that fryer and those kinds of things. So, making sure that we're making informed decisions and the person that we're supporting has all the information to make a decision that, as Shay said, is comfortable and safe and equitable in that person's life. Shay, I see your camera's on.
I just wanted to add something onto that, right? Because now as I think about the experience, because I was able to go, because I was able to see the pictures of you and another one of our colleagues inside, right? The next time I might be more willing to think about, would I take that risk? So I think sometimes in creating that equitable experience, when we give people that dignity of risk, we give them an opportunity to be exposed to something or experience something that the experience might grow over time as we give them an opportunity to experience and to sit with the that makes them feel safe. Then over time, you might see that opportunity grow. And so it's so important for us to give space for people to digest that and then to grow from those experiences. I just wanted to add that.
No, I think that's a great point. I think to always remember that when we're talking about human lives, we're talking about the trajectory of life, that oftentimes the answer when it's no, it's not never, it's not right now, right? This is not where I'm at right now. And I think that's a really important choice. And a lot of what you're looking at when you're digging into the idea of dignity of risk and duty of care is really what we like to talk to in terms of the balance of important to versus important for. And when we're talking about what's important to a person, these are the things that make you satisfied, that make you content, comforted, fulfilled, happy in life. These are the people that you're in great relationship with. These are your family members and your friends and your coworkers that are important to you. This is the area where you have the ability to have status in your life. I am Heather Daly, who is a person-centered thinking trainer, and that's part of my status, and it's important to me. I have control over my life, where I live, who I hang out with, what I eat for breakfast, and so on and so forth. It's the things you like to do and the places that you like to go. But beyond that, it's the rhythms and patterns of your life that create that comfortable environment, that give you a sense of belonging, that give you a sense of purpose, that give you a sense of grounding. It's the rituals and routines that you participate in. And I could go into great depths with rituals and routines, but we all have them. Whether it's from the time you wake up in the morning and you're one of those don't talk to me till I've had my morning coffee folks, Or maybe you're more of one of those folks that get up in the morning and you wake up like a bright ray of sunshine and everybody around you might be kind of grumbling and rolling their eyes. But that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. We're talking about the things that you need, your comfort items, and the things that give you that opportunity to just feel comfortable, full, and whole. I once had a self-advocate explain this to me in such a great visual way. He said, important too are the things you take two hands and you place them over your heart right here. And these are the things that you have to feel love and content and warm and comfortable. Important for imbalance, however, are the things that address things like your health and your safety and the way that people perceive you that make it necessary for folks to help you and for you to be included into your community. And that same self-advocate said, if you take the 5 fingers on your hand and you put 4 down and you go like this, the important 4 are the things that you have to do, right? The things that your doctor tells you, the vitamins you need to take, the medicines you need to take, the make sure that you have that roof over your head. And as you're engaging in community, the things that you need to do have or the way you need to project in order to be accepted. My mom has become an avid pickleball player. And this morning, I happen to be out of town right now. And we're at the beach. We were taking a bike ride this morning and we rode by the pickleball courts here in this community that we're in. And right away, you could see my mom light up because she understood the culture. She recognized their clothes. She recognized their paddles. She recognized their balls. And she's getting ready to go play with them on Wednesday. But she knows when she shows up, how to dress, how to look, how to talk, the rules of engagement, right? And that's what we're talking about. Whether you're going to church on Sunday or wherever you worship, you know, it might be a very formal place that you're going, or you might be more of a come as you are kind of place, but knowing what it is that you need to do or be, or how you need to appear, or as I like to say, those rules of engagement in that community. We'll also talk about the fact that with important 2 and important 4, it's hard to maintain that balance. Matter of fact, I would argue it's nearly impossible to maintain that balance. But the idea is that we're constantly trying to hold that balance in as much as we can. A lot of times you have to be able to kind of hook that important 2 into that important 4. And what I mean by that is I'm somebody who my whole life has struggled with weight, right? I've always been as a little girl, what you would have called chubby, or, you know, husky if you're a little boy. And throughout my life, I've struggled with that. And I've always considered myself to be a healthy but thick person. In 2021, I contracted COVID along with a lot of you guys. And when that happened to me, I got very, very sick. And I had a lot of problems with my lungs. And I was functionally disabled for a while. It was hard for me to even get across the grocery store. It was hard for me to get out of bed because my joints hurt. I was in a lot of pain. I was in a lot of discomfort. And I actually put on quite a lot more weight. And so I got very, very, very heavy. And during that time in my life, when I was heavy and my lungs weren't working and my joints weren't working, I wasn't really so much focused on some of the things that I love to do, like hiking and going to the beach and you know, going out with friends and engaging with my peers. I was really focused on health. I was really focused on how to get through the day. I was really focused, am I gonna see tomorrow? And so instead of, you know, being balanced in my important 2 and important 4, for a number of months, I was pretty much purely focused on important 4. I wasn't even engaged in work as much as I'd like to be in all of those things. And I think all of us can relate to that there are times in our lives where things fall out of balance. And I had to start looking at, okay, what do I do to make this change, right? And so I reached out to my family. I reached out to my primary care physician. I reached out to people in my circle of support and said, I need help. I need to do things differently. And I was able to get on a plan, on a trajectory that was different. I changed the meds I was taking. I changed my diet. I changed my exercise plans. I changed a lot of things. And one step at a time, little by little, I was able to recover from that experience and kind of get my life back. Moving that to people that we support, you have to do the same thing in your circles of support. You got to keep an eye on folks. Nikki, did you need something? I'm sorry.
We're good. She was just signaling a switch of interpreters. Thank you.
Oh, you guys are switching off. I apologize.
Yeah,
okay.
No problem. And I'll
Okay,
spotlight
perfect.
Nikki. Give me 1 second. Spotlight. Sorry about that.
Nope, you're fine.
Okay.
So as we move through life and as we have these different life experiences, as a part of that circle of support for people that we are working with, we have to take a look at that. And we have to make sure that if there are those disruptors in life, illnesses, breakups, moves, change in family dynamics, loss of job, that we are in concert, that's a time when we're really wrapping around that person to say, how can we support this person to get back in balance? What are those things that are important to that person that we can make sure that they stay connected to? What are those things that are important for them that maybe need to ramp up a little bit during this time to help them get back into that space where things are more in balance, and that we can kind of move past that struggle? Or if it's truly a life-changing event, right? There are things like terminal illnesses and things like that. How do we help keep those scales in balance during this transitional time, this new normal in life, as life continues to progress and change over time? So we just like to think about how we keep that balance moving forward with the persons that we support. I'm going to shift gears here and let Shay take back over the mic, and she's going to lead you guys through collecting information in a person-centered way and how do we learn from it.
Thank you so much, Heather. The conversation has been so rich, and I hope that everyone is truly enjoying this. So as we think about all of the things that we've discussed, we've talked about the importance of a circle of support. We've talked about those people being involved in order to help that person truly define, discover, understand, and plan for a meaningful life. So we want to talk about the importance of capturing the information that lends to us understanding what's important to people, what's important for people, and how do we organize that in a way that creates that shared vision. So as we jump into this next part, we want to ask you to participate. As we move forward, we want to take a quick poll, and we want to know from you, what are you using? Are you using a person-centered framework that captures your learning? So are you using person-centered thinking tools? Are you using charting the life course? Are you using things from Conf? Are you using the national quality measures? Are you using essential lifestyle planning? Are you using personal outcome measures from CQL? What are those things that you're using? And maybe if you're not utilizing anything, tell us that too. We want to hear from you in the chat. What are you using? Are you using Charting the Life Course? You could put CTLC. Are you using Essential Lifestyle Planning? You could put ELP. Are you using, yes, use the question and answer to answer. Awesome. The Q&A to answer. Are you using person-centered thinking tools? You can put PCTT.
And Shay, I would say if you're not using anything, that's fine too. We'd love to know that, because we're here to share with you guys what you could be using. So if the answer is nothing, that's great too.
That's okay too.
If you're doing your own thing, we'd love to hear what you might be doing there as well. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. If you're using personal outcome, I see PCTT in there. I love it. We've got some people who aren't using anything. Anybody using POM, P-O-M? Awesome. All right, I see PCTT and PPD. Wonderful. Just common sense and a lot of guts. I love that. Right now you're using PPCL. Wonderful. We don't have any person-centered planning as a resource center. Here's information. Awesome. Here for the information. Oh, I love. Some people are using the questions built into the OCDD. Wonderful. Quality of life indicators. Wonderful. Awesome. Not sure. Love that answer. PCD. Wonderful. We are not using anything. I am not familiar. You're not familiar with the acronyms. Good catch right there, because I know in this field, we can be the alphabet soup people. So thank you for pulling my coattail. When we say PCTT, that's person-centered thinking tools. When we say POM, that's personal outcome measures. We say charting the life course. We would normally say that in the acronym CTLC. Essential lifestyle planning would be ELP. I'm trying to think. Sometimes QOL is going to equal quality of life indicators. So those are some of the common ones. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating in that and giving us those answers. Certainly if other people have ones that they want to share, continue to share that in the chat. So let's get in and talk about what it means to use person-centered frameworks and how that helps us in capturing the information that we are collecting. So it's important for us to realize or to remember that as we are going through this discovery process with people, that in order for it to be impactful, in order for it to be effective, we have to utilize the information that we are actually capturing. Because when we're capturing that information, we are essentially, without words, building a promise to act on what we hear. And when we have that promise to act on what we hear, that's where we're building that bridge of trust. And that bridge can be easily damaged if we the extensive process of discovering what's meaningful, what's valuable to people, but we just create a pretty paper that we then put into a file cabinet where we've collected all this information, we've made that person feel like they're heard, that they're understood, but then nothing happens. That's like living Nightmare on Elm Street. Somebody knows what I want, but I don't see any actions towards it. So we want to make sure that we don't just create pretty paper, that we create better lives from the information that we're capturing. And again, as we utilize the person-centered frameworks, that helps us to do so. I love this quote by Michael Small, who is one of the thought leaders in person-centered practice and a dear mentor of Heather and ours. He said, "There is no revealed wisdom, just hard work." And when we talk about that hard work, it is important to recognize that best practice and person-centered planning is hard work. It's hard work. It is often easier to make a decision for someone in that moment. It's often faster to just pick a goal on somebody's behalf. Like, I know what you want to do, and sometimes to operate from that comfortable place to assume I know what's best for the person, right? I know what's best for my loved one. So rather than going through that long process of having a conversation, I'm just gonna do a brain dump of what I believe that they want. And when we make a conscious decision to do person-centered planning, we make a conscious decision to pause, to really listen in a way that values that person's voice and empowers them. That we are applying what we learn, that we are challenging ourselves to change our minds as our lives change, that it's okay for others to change their minds as their lives change, and that we're allowing people to use supports to guide them, right? Not to control, but to guide. Again, going back to that having power with and not power over. That we're supporting people to provide opportunities for informed decision-making, being supported towards what I want and what I want to achieve out of my life. It is really about us not making the choices for people, but supporting them to make the choices. Heather said that dignity of risk versus duty of care. It is recognizing that At first, a person may not know how to make the choices because maybe they've not had that opportunity before, but that we can help them in the development of the decision-making process. Is recognizing that the process is messy. It's not a straight line, right? But it's full of learning opportunities as we go around each curve. All of that hard work helps people to blossom, to grow, for circles of support to grow stronger, and for us to all be unified in helping people really get out of life what they want. It helps us to be flexible and that bond of trust to be formed and to grow stronger and stronger over time. That is the goal of what we want to do. And the way that we make that to come to pass is through our person-centered planning process. It's in having that transparency in documentation. So once we define our circle of support, there is transparency that happens in documentation. Heather, if you could move us forward one slide. There's transparency that happens, and it's about making sure that the information that we're capturing is appropriately accessible for all people, that it's written in a way that the person who is written about is in plain language and they can understand it, that everyone has an opportunity to learn from what is written about the person and them to learn about what's written about themselves, that everyone has an opportunity to contribute, right? That collaboration and contribution is very important, and that we share the same vision for the services that the person is receiving. It all has to have a purpose in a meeting. And so that brings us to the why of documentation. You know, though it is true that documentation for most providers is required element, because it's tied to funding, it's tied to accreditation, certification. We know all of these things. And that can give documentation sometimes a bad reputation, right? Because people are like, it's just this thing that we got to do. But since we're going to capture and collect this data anyway, we might as well put it to work, right? All of our systems require documentation to determine the quality of services. But as a circle of support, we can utilize that documentation to promote quality of life for people because it helps to tell the story. So the information that's collected should always be written in a way that supports growth. It supports learning and how to help a person really get out of life what they desire. It is written in a way that is going to help every person in that circle of support be very clear about what their role is and how they can contribute. And there are many, many different tools and frameworks that can help us to capture that information that leads to, again, the continual back and forth of the important to and important for, but paints a meaningful life for the person. So the way that we organize that information, we like to think of this in buckets and frames. Now, don't judge me. I hear you laughing out there. I see you looking at me with that tone of voice that says, what are you talking about? The country girl in me visualizes this in frames and buckets. So think about your favorite pair of glasses. Think about how you meticulously chose the frame that those lenses would be in. Maybe it was decorative on the side. Maybe it has a little bit of bling on it. Maybe it was tinted with a certain color. It was a certain shape to fit your face. But those frames guide what you see. They guide how you see it. They guide what you're looking for. And the person-centered frameworks that we choose do just that. They give us a set of criteria, a set of values to look for in people's lives. And so those frames and what we see and how we go about fulfilling our mission or helping people get out of life with what they desire is guided by those frameworks or can be guided. But the way that we organize the information that we learn along the way is really about the buckets that we put them in. How are we sorting that information out and putting it together in a very organized, planful way that that individual understands or is able to clearly communicate the vision for their life, and everyone in that person's circle of support understands that vision as well and can help align resources and supports to help that person get what they want out of life. So there are many different frameworks that we want to introduce to you. The first one that we're going to look at on the next slide is called, it's called MAPS, right? So MAPS is making a plan for tomorrow, right? Making a plan for tomorrow. And so in the, what you begin to look at is, what is the dream that the person wants to have, right? Where is it that they want to go in their life? I'm sorry, let me scroll up here a little bit. So let me draw back from the dream. You're starting with the story. What's currently going on in the person's life? Who are they now? What are they experiencing? And from there, you look at, what's the dream? Where do I want to go in my life? What would be valuable and meaningful for me in what I want to achieve in the future? The next thing you go to is then, what's the nightmare that I want to stay away from? What are the things that maybe I've experienced in my past? I no longer want to go back to that place. I no longer want to experience that again. And as Heather alluded to, right, you can use this as an assessment, not just with people who use words to communicate or maybe have the motor skills that allows them to vocalize, but also in paying attention to people's responses to pictures or sounds that might indicate things that they're delighting in, and things that maybe cause them fear and they want to stay away from. Those words were not coming. Then you go to thinking about, all right, who can contribute to this, right? Who can contribute to making this dream come to pass? Who can share that valuable information about what they know about the person, experience, what they've observed? And then in going into the action planning part, where you begin to think about, what's the path going forward? What are the steps that we need to take? And ending with an action agreement to say, everyone in this circle of support, here's your part, and your part, that's going to map out what this person wants to achieve. That's one framework that you can use in your discovery process. The next one would be the path. And that is a future planning based on positive alternatives towards a future with hope, is basically what PATH stands for. And in PATH, what you're doing is you're starting with the North Star. If you could dream or have everything with no limitations, what's that North Star that you're looking for? Then you go back to thinking about what's possible and what's happening right now, that's happening currently in the person's life. From there, you go on a path to start thinking about describing the now, describing the information that people need to have, who can get on board, what can make this pathway towards that stronger, how do you get people engaged and involved that then is going to lead them to the North Star. So again, that's going to end in having that agreement that everyone in that circle of support is able to contribute.
Hey, I was just going to add real quick with paths. I really like the structure of this one for a couple of reasons. One, it enrolls people to participate. And two, it gives an opportunity for measurable next steps, kind of the who's going to do what by when. So I think this is one that is a really good, I like to point this out as a really good place to kind of start the journey of person-centered practices, along with some of the person-centered thinking tools, because I think it just gives a really, even to set up your circle of support, this one gives you some really clear parameters on getting started. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Oh, no, thank you so much for adding. Absolutely. I'm definitely a person that's about structure. So I love that idea too of being very clear and intentional in the process. The next set of things that we would offer you are those person-centered thinking tools and skills. And a number of you said that you're already utilizing this. And so you've heard us refer to utilizing that skill of sorting what's important to and important for people. a communication chart to be able to capture the information that we are all giving out to people without utilizing words, right? And so understanding what a specific behavior means, because all behavior is communication of one kind or another. So utilizing that communication chart to really understand who a person is, who they want around them, how they want support in various parts of their life as they're experiencing different things, how they want to be communicated to, and how they communicate. Being able to evaluate what's working and not working so that we're not continuing to repeat the same thing over and over again. We're not experiencing the same goal over and over again, the same supports, but being able to evaluate, is that having the impact that we're expecting? And another evaluation tool, 4+1, of being able to ask, what have we tried, right? What did we learn? What did we think worked well, or what we were pleased about, what were we concerned about? And now, based on all of that information that we're evaluating, what are our next steps, right? Based on what we know now, where do we go from here? And so those are various tools that you can utilize in your planning process. The next one is maybe a newer one that everyone is not familiar with, and it's charting the life course. This particular framework was developed through the University of Missouri, Kansas City, by Dr. Shelley, or we call her Shelley, but Dr. Michelle Reynolds and her team. And it really takes a framework where it looks at the 6 quality of lives of areas and really helps to plan from there. So who are people in their daily life and employment? Who are they socially and spiritually? Where are the places that they want to live in their community and who they want to live with? How do we balance that with the things that keep people healthy and safe? How do we balance that with how people want to contribute in their citizenship, right? What gives them safety and security? So taking those things and helping to be able to utilize the life trajectory as a planning tool to say, what's my vision for a good life? And what are the things that I want to be in there? And also, what's the vision for what I don't want? Because sometimes planning is easier when I can tell you what I don't want, the experiences I don't want anymore, and then work backwards to learn from my past experiences. So now I establish a solid trajectory towards what I want. In addition to that, there are tools such as the integrated support star that really helps a person, it helps families, helps systems to think about, how do we help that person get everything that they want out of life without the barrier of only focusing on whether or not people are eligible for it. And so what I love about the Charting the Life course tools is that they really help you to think about what a person wants or plan for with that person, what they want over a span of time. It really helps to think about how we all change in different ages and stages, and what questions do we need to answer in order to make sure that we have meaningful supports throughout the whole process.
Hey, Shay, I would also like to point out that when it comes to charting the life course, Therap is a technology partner. And those tools are in fact embedded into some of the structure of Therap. So if you're using documentation solutions and you're looking for one that does have some person-centered frameworks involved, we do have that partnership and the ability for you to do some of that person-centered documentation and collection inside of the Therap application. I was just going to share that with everybody.
Perfect, because we would love to support you with that, right? What's unique about our system is, as Heather said, we do have Charting the Life course, but also other pieces in our module that can help capture information from every single one of these frameworks that we've spoken about, depending on what your agency is using. And so as we think about overall person-centered plan, a well thought out plan is really going to capture the hopes and dreams of that person. It's going to clearly define what's important to and important for that individual. Again, it's going to provide that opportunity for the circle of support to really understand their role and how they can help to help that person fulfill what they want out of their life. It's going to define what that person wants across multiple areas of their life, and has opportunity for negotiation, right? All of us change our mind from one moment to the next. So having that flexibility is structured enough to allow for that change without everything falling apart. and it guides us to action. And so I hope that the information that we've shared about these different frameworks has been helpful to you. Feel free to ask us questions in the Q&A, and I'm going to turn this back over to Heather to finish us out.
So with all of this, you know, there has to be a goal or an end game or what we're trying to accomplish. And I think we've laid some of that foundation. It's really about a better life for the people that you're supporting. In that, I know some of you guys are familiar with or have heard about the CMS HCBS final rule. And that final rule is also, and again, to get out of those acronyms, the Home and Community-Based Services final rule is to really do the same thing. It is in alignment with person-centered practices. The idea of the HCBS ruling is to help ensure that people do have a better quality of life, that their planning reflects what's important to them and ensures that the services that they receive are being delivered in a manner that reflects that personal preference, and that it reflects an individual's strengths and preferences, and it also reflects those clinical supports needed. So again, we're just kind of reiterating that even though this CMS final rule seems a little bit scary and maybe a little bit daunting and there's a lot going on, it really is about person-centered services and getting people to that best life that they want to live or desire to live. It is based on outcomes for the person, that they are accomplishing or having those things that they like and desire in their lives, and that they are on a growth trajectory that's meaningful to them. And it's also about integrating into the community in a way that the person is choosing what that looks like, where they live, who they're with, how they participate in their communities. It's also about employment. You know, there's a section there about, do people want competitive integrated employment? What would that look like? How are, again, they engaging in their communities, controlling their personal resources? How are people's services helping them to participate in community life to the same degree as somebody who doesn't need the similar service to be able to access that part of life? It's reflecting both paid and unpaid meaningful supports in a person's life. And really important here, it's written in plain language that's easy to understand and digest, no matter your ability to read or comprehend, that it could be something that is shared with that circle of support, and everybody's going over that plan and make sure that everybody in that circle understands, and that there is an established responsibility for monitoring to make sure that, again, that quality remediation is there and that people really are getting those best lives that they want to live. So I put that in there in this slideshow because I do think that they go together, person-centered planning and the HCBS final ruling. In fact, a lot of what's in the HCBS final ruling goes back to our friend and mentor, Michael Smalls, had a big role in making sure that what was in those final rules is about person-centeredness and people having that positive control over their own lives. This next slide was a quote that I collected from a dear friend of mine. Her name is Denise Eller, and she works at an organization called Avita in Georgia. And she works with this group of individuals that do have developmental disabilities. But the way that she works with them and what she's been able to do to help them exercise positive control in their lives and to help them tap into their communities has been just a really wonderful thing to witness. This group of individuals that she works with have chosen to call themselves the Dream Weavers, and that's just what they set out to do. They set out to participate in community in a way that they make a positive impact on their community. They do a bunch of community projects, and they do a lot of it through the gift and the power of art. So, for example, they made these little hearts for nurses and CNAs in nursing homes that they gave out during COVID. And they do all these amazing, wonderful community products. I have one of their creations at my house. They call them little monsters, and they're these little stuffed animals that they're not really animals at all. That's why they call them monsters, because they're just these stuffed creatures, I guess is a better word, that are made out of scrap fabric and scrap materials. And most of her art is very, it's very, I guess you would say, it's environmentally friendly. She uses a lot of scrap materials that they find, and people will, donate or give stuff that they don't want anymore that might otherwise end up in landfills, and they create art out of it, and it's beautiful. But she was quoted as saying, people want to be remembered for their service, not for being in services. And to me, that was just one of the most powerful things that I'd ever heard anyone say. It's universal. None of us want to be remembered because we, had to have support at some point or another in our lives, or we had some sort of defining disability, but we want to be remembered for the impact that we made in the short amount of time that we were in this world. And that's no different for someone that's receiving services now versus someone that doesn't. Ultimately, that rings true for everybody. And in good person-centered practices and good person-centered planning, we're going to be able to identify and work towards making sure that the people that we support are remembered for their service and how they contributed and how they participated. When we're talking about person-centered practices, we're also focusing on the whole person. And this is important because a lot of times when people receive services, their lives get disjointed. There's a certain group of people that know and understand the person in the context of supported employment. There's a certain group of people that know and understand the person in a context of maybe day program. There's a certain group of people that know and understand that person in the context of their residential living situation. But sometimes those entities don't all communicate very well with each other. And so we end up with this kind of fragmented person. And what we really need to do is make sure that all those entities are communicating with each other and they're talking, and that everybody understands the whole person. There's also a whole cycle to this, right? We want to be able to understand and collect, as you're seeing going on that wheel, what are those person's skills and abilities? What are their interests? What are their learning styles? Who are their family, their friends? Who do they value? What do they want to accomplish, right? As a part of the whole person. And also, what are the barriers? What are the things that are on that important side? Any issues of health, any issues of safety that need to be discussed, mitigated, planned around, so that we can really help someone find that clear path to what makes a person whole and happy and living their best lives, and how do we support that? So ultimately, in person-centered planning, we want to focus again on the whole person and all the different areas of their lives, and help that circle of support map out that plan of success. We can think for a minute about our own lives. Maybe if you have a piece of paper in front of you, you might want to jot some things down. If not, just think about it in your head. But think about a time you wanted to accomplish something in your life. Maybe you wanted to quit smoking, or you wanted to lose weight, or you wanted to fall in love, or you wanted to move or change jobs. Whatever it is, I imagine you didn't leave it up to fate, but you made a plan. At least in your head, you thought about something. You thought about think about that plan that you made. Maybe it was a New Year's resolution. Maybe it was something else. But ask yourself these questions. How did it go? Did it go exactly the way you planned? Did you end up exactly where you thought you would? Or were there roadblocks along the way? Did you have to modify that plan, change your course, maybe completely change what it was you wanted to do? Did you celebrate the small successes along the way? Was it harder than you thought it would be? Was it easier? Did you learn something about yourself? Did you enroll an accountability partner, maybe a friend or a family member that would check in with you on your progress? Did you enlist professionals to help? Maybe a doctor, maybe a personal trainer, a relationship coach, a therapist, or someone else? In a nutshell, that's person-centered planning. You were in control of your plan and your successors and your failures. And you may have enlisted other people along the way, but ultimately it was your path that led you to where you wanted to go. And in the end, you might have taken detours, you might have gotten a little lost, you might have had to turn around and do a whole 180. The people on your team might have even changed. But in the end, it was yours, and it was your ability to move forward through your life, to push through a barrier, to accomplish something new, to move to the next phase. And that's what Shay and I are challenging you to do with the people that you support. And we really do feel like that when we all work together, anything is possible. And ultimately, person-centered planning is just to get us to think about life, and in particular, the life of someone we support. There's a framework in place that helps teams to help the person supported focus on what's positive and possible. Ultimately, all lives are lived in the moments that catch us by surprise. And what I mean by that is a lot of times there's the quote, life gets in the way when you're busy making plans, right? And so often, so much of the beauty of life isn't the things that we plan for, but it's those little moments that just happen. Like Shay and I having the opportunity to decide for ourselves if we wanted to go 600 feet up in the sky or if we didn't. But ultimately, we got to do that together and share a moment that we had absolutely no plan for. So don't get too caught up in the plans. Don't get too caught up in the how-tos and the what-tos. Have that plan in place. Celebrate the milestones when they happen. Be proud when you reach a mountaintop, but also don't forget to live in those moments in between with the peoples we support. Sometimes the best times in life are those times that are just those simple day-to-day things. A moment by the creek, relaxing with our loved ones, our favorite holidays, dining with friends, our local hotspot that we like to engage in. Again, going back to those rhythms and patterns and those traditions in our lives. And together, a good circle of support that's built in trust and respect is a safe environment for learning where everyone has a voice. Everyone can build a good person-centered plan, but that plan should be structured to help a person move forward in their lives and their goals with enough flexibility to allow lives to be lived, minds to be changed, and the freedom to celebrate those unexpected moments. Plans will be documented against in a way that the team can learn from what's occurred throughout a person's life, and it can be amended based on that learning so that together we can use that framework to make sure that that person is ultimately as successful as they can be in engineering a life that they want to live and going in the direction that they want to go to. Shay, I'm going to let you also open up your mic and camera as well and see if there's any questions that are being asked or any comments that need to be addressed. And then I think we'll be ready to close here in just a moment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bambi, for putting that prompt out. I have not seen any questions come through. Certainly, if there are questions that you would like us to answer, anything in our presentation that piques your interest, feel free to do so. And we will hand it back over to, I believe it's at KJ that we're handing it to.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we'll hand it over to you if nothing comes in. I don't see anything. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. It really was our pleasure to present this to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, this session was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I took a lot of notes. However, there was one comment left by Dr. Jim Mitchell. He's just simply stated, if you are blind, you take risk every time you cross the street. However, you don't have a choice. You either learn the skills of travel, training, or you doom yourself, to isolation and dependence on others. This is an everyday challenge. You must struggle to learn, then learn to struggle. Success is transcending your limitations. So I definitely wanted to share the comment that he had left with us as well.
What a powerful comment. Thank you for sharing.
That was powerful.
KJ, we had a question in the previous session in regards to the EPIC system, and they were the person said that they use the Therap system and wondering if they could be linked together. And I'm just wondering if you guys could answer that question.
So EPIC, I think, is a hospital, if I'm not sure, if I'm correct. So currently there is not API integration between EPIC and Therap, but it's something we could follow up to see if there are any plans for that.
Thank you.
Other than that, I just wanted to also give a quick reminder that the conference booklet with the information on as far as the bios, as well as the description of the session, it's linked in our comment section. And we will also We will also link all session recordings to the conference schedule as well. So all of the PowerPoints and every information that's given out during our conference, we'll also be sure to link that to that same website, that same schedule afterwards. And I'm just checking to see if we have anything else. If not, just want to once again thank you both and let you know that we really and truly enjoyed it in you both. So our next session will begin at noon. So if you want to grab something to eat, you can meet us here at noon, or you can feel free to stay, maybe check out the conference description and bio link if you want to, and we'll leave this up and see you then.